On June 6, 1944, Allied forces launched an assault on Nazi-occupied Europe, using technology that, while primitive by today's standards, was groundbreaking for its time. Private John Steele's harrowing experience, dangling from a church steeple in Sainte-Mère-Église, exemplified the challenges faced during the D-Day invasion. The operation's success hinged on ingenious inventions like amphibious tanks that could swim ashore, inflatable dummy tanks to deceive German reconnaissance, and specialized landing craft. These innovations played a crucial role in giving the Allies a fighting chance against Hitler's formidable Atlantic Wall defenses, ultimately turning the tide of World War II. The Atlantic Wall, Hitler's impenetrable fortress. As the tide of war turned against Nazi Germany in 1942, Adolf Hitler recognized the need for a formidable defense to protect his conquered territories in Western Europe. This realization led to the creation of the Atlantic Wall, a massive fortification system stretching over 4,000 miles from Norway to the Spanish border. Hitler's vision was to create an impenetrable barrier that would repel any Allied invasion attempt and secure German dominance over the continent. The construction of the Atlantic Wall was a monumental undertaking, transforming the coastline into a bristling array of defenses. Concrete bunkers, known as pillboxes, were erected at strategic points, designed to withstand heavy bombardment and house troops and artillery. These fortifications were often camouflaged to blend seamlessly with the surrounding landscape, their grey facades weathered by salt and wind, making them nearly invisible from the air or sea. Gun emplacements formed a crucial component of the wall's defensive strategy. Massive coastal batteries, equipped with long-range artillery pieces, were installed to target approaching ships and landing craft. The thunderous roar of these guns, some with a range of over 20 miles, echoed along the coastline during practice drills. Smaller anti-aircraft guns created a web of steel in the sky, ready to shred incoming aircraft. The beaches themselves became deadly obstacle courses. Steel structures known as hedgehogs lurked beneath the waves, their jagged edges waiting to rip open the hulls of landing craft. Belgian gates, metal fences that could trap and immobilize vehicles, stood like silent sentinels on the sand. Millions of landmines lay buried, their presence betrayed only by the occasional warning sign. For the German forces, the Atlantic Wall provided a sense of security and bolstered morale. Many soldiers believed in its invincibility. "We called it the Iron Wall," one German corporal later recalled. Looking out at those bunkers and gun emplacements, I truly believed no force on earth could breach it. We felt safe behind its strength. This confidence, however, would prove to be a double-edged sword, potentially leading to complacency among some units. For the Allies, the Atlantic Wall loomed as a daunting obstacle that had to be overcome. Intelligence reports and reconnaissance missions revealed the extent of the fortifications, leading to concerns about the feasibility of a successful invasion. The wall's existence necessitated extensive planning and the development of specialized equipment and tactics to breach the defenses. Allied soldiers preparing for the invasion faced the psychological burden of assaulting these heavily fortified positions. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, appointed by Hitler to inspect and improve the Atlantic Wall in late 1943, played a crucial role in strengthening the coastal defenses. Known as the Desert Fox for his tactical brilliance in North Africa, Rommel brought a fresh perspective to the defensive strategy. He recognized that the critical moment of any invasion would be the initial landing, and he sought to make the beaches themselves as deadly as possible. Rommel ordered the placement of additional obstacles in the tidal zones, including submerged logs tipped with mines and Rommel's asparagus, sharpened logs connected by tripwires to trigger mines. He also advocated for the positioning of mobile reserves, including panzer divisions, close to the coast to quickly respond to any landing attempt. Rommel's efforts significantly enhanced the Atlantic Wall's effectiveness, particularly in the Normandy region. Despite its imposing appearance and the confidence it instilled in German forces, the Atlantic Wall harbored critical weaknesses that would ultimately contribute to its failure. The linear nature of the defenses meant that once breached, the entire system could be outflanked. Additionally, the wall's static nature contrasted with the German military's traditional emphasis on mobile warfare, limiting their ability to respond flexibly to an invasion. Operation Bodyguard, the art of deception. How does one hide the largest amphibious invasion in history from an enemy on high alert? This was the monumental challenge facing Allied forces as they prepared to invade Nazi-occupied Europe. The success of D-Day hinged on an elaborate web of deception, misdirection, and theatrical performances on an unprecedented scale. This intricate campaign of subterfuge, known as Operation Bodyguard, would prove as crucial to the invasion's success as any weapon or piece of military hardware. Operation Bodyguard's primary objective was to convince Hitler and his generals that the main Allied thrust would come at the Pas de Calais, the closest point between England and France, rather than the actual target of Normandy. To achieve this ambitious goal, the Allies employed a multifaceted approach that blended fact and fiction into a convincing narrative. They created phantom armies, most notably the fictional 1st U.S. Army Group, FUSAG, supposedly led by General George S. Patton. The Allies constructed elaborate decoy camps, airfields, and vehicle parks in southeast England, positioning inflatable tanks and aircraft to give the impression of massive troop concentrations poised to strike at Calais. The psychological warfare aspect of Operation Bodyguard exploited Hitler's preconceptions and fears. Allied planners crafted a narrative that reinforced the Führer's belief that Calais was the logical invasion point through false radio transmissions, misleading newspaper reports, and staged social events for high-ranking officers. At the heart of this deception lay a network of double agents feeding false information to German handlers. Juan Pujol Garcia, codenamed Garbo, stood out among these operatives. His elaborate network of fictional sub-agents provided a steady stream of misinformation to German military intelligence. Garbo's reports were so highly regarded by the Germans that he was awarded the Iron Cross for his supposed services to the Reich, all while working tirelessly to undermine Nazi war efforts. The Allies also employed diversionary tactics to further confuse German intelligence. Operation Fortitude North aimed to convince the Germans that Norway was a potential invasion target, while Operation Zeppelin suggested an Allied invasion of the Balkans. These operations diverted attention from Normandy and forced Hitler to maintain substantial military presences in multiple regions. As D-Day approached, the effectiveness of Operation Bodyguard became increasingly apparent. German intelligence reports consistently pointed to Calais as the primary invasion target. Even as Allied forces began landing in Normandy on June 6, 1944, Hitler remained convinced that this was merely a diversion, and that the real attack would come at Calais. This belief persisted for weeks after the initial landings, significantly hampering the German response to the invasion. The success of Operation Bodyguard relied heavily on the rigid and often paranoid nature of the Nazi command structure. Hitler's tendency to micromanage military operations and his distrust of his own generals created an environment where conflicting intelligence reports were often dismissed or misinterpreted. This played directly into the hands of the Allies, allowing their deceptions to take root and flourish. The impact of Operation Bodyguard on the success of D-Day was profound. By convincing the Germans to concentrate their forces in the wrong location, the Allies established a crucial beachhead in Normandy with fewer casualties than might otherwise have been expected. The operation's success demonstrated the vital role that intelligence and counterintelligence play in modern warfare. As the tide of war turned in favor of the Allies, the stage was set for the largest amphibious assault in history. The deception of Operation Bodyguard had laid the groundwork for the invasion forces, allowing them to approach the beaches of Normandy with a crucial advantage. The German forces, their attention diverted and their resources misallocated, would soon face the full might of the Allied invasion force. Innovations in amphibious warfare. As the early morning mist cleared on June 6, 1944, a strange sight emerged off the coast of Normandy. Sherman tanks, their canvas screens raised like sails, bobbed in the choppy waters of the English Channel. These were the DD duplex drive Shermans, a revolutionary adaptation of the standard M4 Sherman tank, designed to overcome the formidable challenge of amphibious warfare. The development of the DD Sherman was born out of necessity. Allied planners, faced with the daunting task of storming heavily fortified beaches, realized that conventional military hardware was inadequate for the invasion of Nazi-occupied Europe. The English Channel's unpredictable weather and treacherous waters demanded innovative solutions. Engineers fitted the DD Shermans with collapsible canvas screens that, when raised, allowed the vehicles to float. Twin propellers provided propulsion in water, while the tank's original treads took over on land. This dual-drive system gave the tanks their name and their unique amphibious capabilities. The path to creating an effective amphibious tank was fraught with challenges. Initial tests in calm lakes showed promise, but trials in rougher seas revealed critical flaws. A particularly harrowing incident occurred during a test off the coast of Scotland, when a sudden squall caused several DD Shermans to sink, resulting in the tragic loss of 2 crewmen. This event underscored the need for further refinement and highlighted the extreme risks associated with amphibious operations. Engineers persevered, making crucial modifications to improve the DD Sherman's seaworthiness. They enhanced waterproof seals, adjusted freeboard height, and developed more robust canvas screens. These improvements significantly increased the tank's ability to withstand choppy waters, though concerns about their performance in adverse conditions persisted among some military leaders. The DD Sherman was not the only innovation in amphibious warfare technology. The Allies developed a range of specialized landing craft to transport troops and vehicles from ship to shore. The landing craft, Vehicle Personnel, LCVP, known as the Higgins boat, could carry up to 36 combat-equipped infantrymen or a jeep with 12 troops, depositing them directly onto the beach through a front ramp. Larger vessels like the landing craft, tank, LCT, and the landing ship, tank, LST, were designed to deliver heavy vehicles, including tanks, directly to the beachhead. The LST could carry up to 20 Sherman tanks or 30 vehicles on its tank deck, with additional space for smaller landing craft on the main deck. Its bow doors and extendable ramp allowed for quick offloading, minimizing exposure to enemy fire. These amphibious innovations were tested in various operations leading up to D-Day, including the disastrous Dieppe raid in 1942, and Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily in 1943. Each engagement provided valuable insights, influencing the development of new technologies and tactics for future amphibious landings. The effectiveness of these new technologies played a crucial role in the success of the D-Day landings. The ability to land tanks directly on the beaches provided vital fire support for infantry units facing well-entrenched German positions. The specialized landing craft allowed for the rapid buildup of men and materiel, essential for establishing and expanding the beachhead. As D-Day approached, Allied planners incorporated lessons learned from previous operations into their strategy. They recognized that the success of the invasion would hinge on the ability to quickly establish a foothold on the beaches and push inland. The innovative amphibious vehicles and craft were seen as crucial to achieving this objective, providing the necessary firepower and mobility to overcome German defenses. Operation Neptune, the Naval Armada, the largest armada in history. These words, uttered by General Dwight D. Eisenhower, encapsulated the sheer magnitude of Operation Neptune, the naval component of the D-Day invasion. Over 5,000 vessels were assembled to transport troops, vehicles, and supplies across the English Channel to the beaches of Normandy, a feat of logistical prowess that remains unparalleled in military history. The assembly of such a massive fleet presented numerous challenges, particularly in maintaining secrecy. Ports along the southern coast of England bustled with activity as ships arrived from across the British Isles and North America. The influx of vessels and personnel required careful management to avoid arousing suspicion. German reconnaissance flights monitored Allied port activity, necessitating elaborate deception measures. Ships were dispersed across multiple ports and harbours, with many anchored offshore to reduce congestion. Communication between vessels was strictly limited, with radio silence enforced to prevent German interception. Admiral Sir Bertram Ramsay, the Allied naval commander, reflected on the immense responsibility. The fate of Europe rests on our ability to move this armada in secret. Every ship, every sailor, every decision is crucial. His words underscored the human element behind the massive operation. The invasion fleet comprised a diverse assemblage of warships and specialized landing craft. 6 battleships, including the HMS Warspite and the USS Texas, provided heavy naval gunfire support. 23 cruisers targeted German defensive positions along the coast, while 129 destroyers screened against potential U-boat attacks. The workhorses of the invasion were the landing ships and craft, including large landing ship, tanks, LSTs, landing craft, tanks, LCTs, and landing craft, vehicle, personnel, LCVPs. A critical component of Operation Neptune was the naval bombardment plan. Allied planners recognized that neutralizing German coastal defenses was essential for the success of the landings. Battleships and cruisers were assigned specific targets along the Normandy coast, their powerful guns capable of destroying concrete bunkers and artillery positions. The bombardment was timed to begin in the pre-dawn hours of June 6th, providing covering fire for the approaching landing craft. Minesweepers played a crucial role in clearing safe passages through the heavily mined English Channel. In the days leading up to D-Day, these unsung heroes worked tirelessly to ensure the larger ships could approach the Normandy coast safely. Coordination between naval forces and air support was also vital, with fighter planes providing cover for the fleet and bombers targeting inland defenses and transportation networks. As the invasion date approached, tension mounted among the assembled forces. The fleet was divided into task forces, each assigned to a specific landing beach. Troops were embarked onto their transport ships, and final briefings ensured every participant understood their role in the complex operation. Weather became a source of great concern, with forecasts indicating unfavorable conditions for the planned date of June 5th. General Eisenhower's decision to postpone the invasion by 24 hours, based on meteorological advice, allowed for slightly improved conditions, but added to the anxiety of the troops already aboard their ships. As June 5th turned to June 6th, the massive armada began to move under the cover of darkness, maintaining strict radio silence. The experiences of D-Day have significantly influenced modern naval operations. Today's amphibious assaults utilize advanced technologies for coordination and communication, but the fundamental principles of combined arms and precise timing established during Operation Neptune remain crucial. The emphasis on deception and operational security continues to be a cornerstone of military planning, with digital technologies presenting new challenges and opportunities for maintaining strategic surprise. The movement of troops and supplies to embarkation points was conducted under cover of darkness, utilizing a network of temporary camps hidden in wooded areas near the coast. This level of secrecy was essential to the success of the operation, as any leak of information could have alerted German forces to the impending invasion. Airborne assault, pathfinders in the night. As the night sky over Normandy loomed dark and foreboding, Lieutenant John Harrison of the 101st Airborne Division's Pathfinder team stood at the open door of his C-47 transport plane. His heart raced as he checked his equipment one final time. The success of the entire airborne operation hinged on his team's ability to mark the drop zones accurately. With a deep breath, he leapt into the void, the first of thousands to descend upon occupied France. The airborne assault of June 6, 1944, marked a pivotal moment in military history, showcasing the Allies' embrace of innovative tactics and technology. Over 20,000 American, British, and Canadian troops participated in this daring night operation, designed to secure key objectives behind enemy lines and sow confusion among German defenders in the crucial hours before the beach landings. The preparation for this unprecedented assault was rigorous and meticulous. Paratroopers underwent intense physical training, practiced low-altitude jumps in darkness, and honed their skills in small unit tactics and hand-to-hand combat. They studied detailed sand tables and maps of their drop zones. The psychological toll was immense, with many soldiers writing farewell letters to their families, acutely aware of the dangers that awaited them. Technological innovations played a crucial role in the operation's execution. Pathfinder teams utilized radio beacons and marker lights to guide subsequent waves of paratroopers to their designated landing areas. The development of improved parachutes and gliders allowed for more accurate and safer troop deployment. As the first Pathfinders touched down at 016 on June 6th, the psychological impact on both Allied and German troops was profound. For the paratroopers, the darkness and uncertainty of their surroundings heightened their senses and resolve. Many found themselves isolated or in small groups, forcing them to rely on their training and initiative. The German defenders, caught off guard by the scale and suddenness of the assault, experienced a mixture of confusion and fear, as reports of Allied troops seemingly appearing out of nowhere flooded their communication channels. Despite the chaos of the initial landings, with many units scattered due to adverse weather conditions and anti-aircraft fire, the airborne forces began to rally and move towards their objectives. The confusion, while problematic for the Allies, also served to disorient the German defenders, who struggled to determine the scale and aims of the assault. One of the operation's early successes came from the British 6th Airborne Division. Major John Howard led a glider-borne force in a daring coup de main operation, capturing the strategically vital Pegasus Bridge over the Caen Canal. This action secured a crucial crossing point and helped protect the eastern flank of the invasion area. As dawn broke on June 6th, the situation remained fluid. Isolated groups of paratroopers engaged German forces across the Normandy countryside, fighting to secure their objectives. The American 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions worked to secure the western flank of the invasion area, capturing key bridges and road junctions to prevent German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. Meanwhile, the British 6th Airborne Division focused on their mission to destroy the German coastal battery at Merville. The airborne operations' impact extended far beyond its immediate tactical objectives. By disrupting German communications and sowing confusion behind enemy lines, the paratroopers created a window of opportunity for the amphibious landings to come. As the first waves of Allied soldiers approached the Normandy coastline, they did so knowing that thousands of their comrades were already engaging the enemy inland, drawing away resources and attention from the beaches. The success of the airborne assault would prove crucial in the opening hours of Operation Overlord, setting the stage for one of the most significant military operations in history. Utah Beach, fortune favors the bold. As dawn broke on June 6, 1944, the first waves of American troops approached Utah Beach, the westernmost sector of the Normandy invasion. "We'll start the war from right here," declared Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., setting the tone for an unexpected turn of events that would transform a potential catastrophe into an unexpected victory. The assault on Utah Beach was meticulously planned as part of the broader Allied invasion strategy. The 4th Infantry Division, supported by elements of the 90th Infantry Division, was tasked with securing a beachhead and pushing inland to link up with airborne forces. Their objectives included capturing Cherbourg and cutting off the Cotentin Peninsula. As landing craft approached, strong currents and poor visibility caused them to drift approximately 2,000 yards south of their intended landing zone. This error could have spelled disaster, but fate had other plans for the 4th Infantry Division. Roosevelt, among the first to realize they had landed in the wrong location, made a swift and crucial decision to proceed from their current position. This bold choice would prove to be a stroke of tactical genius. The new landing site was less heavily defended than the original target. German forces here were primarily low-quality troops, many being Soviet prisoners of war conscripted into the Wehrmacht. Their morale was low and combat effectiveness limited. The reduced German resistance allowed American forces to establish a beachhead quickly. The 8th Infantry Regiment, led by Colonel James A. Van Fleet, spearheaded the assault. As troops pushed inland, they encountered sporadic resistance, but nothing compared to the intense fighting on other beaches. Amphibious tanks and naval support proved crucial. Despite rough seas, most DD duplex drive tanks made it ashore, providing vital fire support. The USS Nevada, a battleship that had survived Pearl Harbor, delivered devastating offshore bombardment. Its 14-inch guns pounded German positions, softening defenses and covering advancing troops. As the day progressed, the 4th Infantry Division made steady progress inland, quickly linking up with elements of the 101st Airborne Division. This allowed for rapid expansion of the beachhead and capture of key objectives. By day's end, forces from Utah Beach had advanced approximately 4 miles inland and linked with most paratroopers. They suffered relatively light casualties, with only about 197 men killed or wounded, a stark contrast to heavy losses on other beaches. They also captured around 700 German prisoners. The success at Utah Beach contrasted sharply with the brutal fighting on Omaha Beach. While Utah forces made rapid progress, their comrades at Omaha were locked in a desperate struggle against determined defenders and unfavorable terrain. This disparity highlighted warfare's unpredictable nature and how small factors, like a navigational error, could significantly impact a battle's outcome. The Utah Beach landing faced challenges not seen since the Allied invasion of Sicily in 1943. However, adaptable leadership, effective support, and the element of surprise contributed to a remarkable victory that would help shape the course of World War II. Omaha Beach, bloody baptism of fire. As dawn broke on June 6, 1944, American forces approaching Omaha Beach faced a daunting challenge that would soon become a nightmarish reality. The assault on this heavily fortified sector was entrusted to the battle-hardened 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One, and elements of the 29th Infantry Division. They were tasked with securing a beachhead dominated by steep bluffs and formidable German defenses. The scene that unfolded was one of chaos and carnage. As the first wave of landing craft approached the shore, a hail of artillery and machine gun fire erupted from the German positions. The carefully planned naval and aerial bombardments had failed to neutralize the German defenses, leaving the invading forces exposed to murderous fire from the heights above. The German 352nd Infantry Division, a veteran unit overlooked by Allied intelligence, had transformed the coastline into a killing zone. Concrete bunkers, housing 88 guns and other heavy weapons, unleashed devastating firepower on the incoming Allied forces. As the tide rose, the situation became increasingly desperate. The few tanks that made it ashore were quickly destroyed or immobilized, depriving the infantry of crucial armored support. Colonel George A. Taylor of the 16th Infantry Regiment, finding himself in the thick of the chaos, famously declared, "There are two kinds of people who are staying on this beach, those who are dead and those who are going to die. Now let's get the hell out of here." His words galvanized the men around him, spurring them to action in the face of overwhelming odds. As the morning wore on, small groups of determined soldiers began to find ways up the bluffs. Lieutenant John Spaulding and Staff Sergeant Philip Strechtzik of Company E, 16th Infantry Regiment, led one such group. Despite heavy casualties, they managed to breach the German defenses and establish a tenuous foothold atop the bluffs. Their success opened a vital corridor for following troops, gradually expanding the American presence beyond the beach. The U.S. Navy destroyers played a crucial role in supporting the beleaguered troops on Omaha. Defying standing orders, several destroyer captains brought their ships dangerously close to shore, using their guns to engage German positions with pinpoint accuracy. The USS Frankfurt and USS McCook were among those that provided this critical fire support, silencing many German guns and allowing more troops to advance. By midday, the situation remained precarious, but the tide of battle had begun to shift. General Omar Bradley, observing from the USS Augusta, considered evacuating the beach, but the determination of the men on the ground ultimately prevailed. As more troops made it up the bluffs and German ammunition began to run low, the defenders found themselves increasingly outflanked and overwhelmed. By nightfall, elements of the 1st and 29th Divisions had penetrated several miles into the French countryside, linking up with paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division. The cost of securing Omaha Beach was staggering, with over 2,000 American soldiers killed, wounded, or missing in action. The sand was stained red with blood, and the wreckage of landing craft and vehicles littered the shoreline. The brutal fight for Omaha Beach became a defining moment of the D-Day invasion, and indeed of the entire war. It demonstrated the incredible resilience and bravery of the American soldier in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. The experience on Omaha Beach profoundly influenced future military tactics and planning, underscoring the importance of thorough intelligence gathering, the need for more effective pre-landing bombardment, and the value of amphibious armor support. As the sun set on June 6th, the contrast between Omaha and the other invasion beaches was stark. While Utah, Gold, Juno, and Sword had seen their share of fierce fighting, none had faced the level of resistance encountered at Omaha. The bloodshed on this stretch of Norman coast would forever mark it as Bloody Omaha, a testament to the courage and sacrifice of those who fought there. Gold, Juno, and Sword, the Commonwealth assault. While American forces faced their grueling battle on Omaha Beach, another crucial chapter of the D-Day invasion unfolded to the east. British and Canadian troops were tasked with securing Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches, each presenting its own set of formidable challenges. The success of these landings would prove vital to the overall Allied strategy. The British 50th Infantry Division spearheaded the assault on Gold Beach, aiming to capture the port of Arromanches and link up with American forces from Omaha. At Juno Beach, the Canadian 3rd Infantry Division targeted establishing a bridgehead and pushing inland towards Caen. The easternmost landing, Sword Beach, was assigned to the British 3rd Infantry Division, tasked with capturing Caen and connecting with airborne forces. As dawn broke on June 6, 1944, the Allied naval bombardment commenced, proving more effective on the Commonwealth beaches than at Omaha. This crucial difference significantly impacted the initial stages of the assault. At Gold Beach, British forces encountered stiff resistance from well-entrenched German units. The 50th Infantry Division, supported by specialized armor, including Hobart's Funnies, made steady progress. Private John Hollis of the Hampshire Regiment recalled, "The beach was a chaos of noise and explosions, but we pushed forward, determined to break through." Juno Beach presented a different set of challenges for the Canadian 3rd Infantry Division. The coastline was heavily defended, with seaside villages transformed into fortified strongpoints. Lieutenant Tom Lee of the North Shore Regiment described the landing. "As we approached the beach, the German fire intensified. Men were falling around me, but we had to keep moving." The Canadians displayed remarkable tenacity, methodically clearing the coastal defences and pushing inland. At Sword Beach, the British 3rd Infantry Division began with an unexpected advantage, as many beach obstacles were submerged by an unusually high tide. However, they soon encountered significant German resistance inland. The 21st Panzer Division launched a counterattack, marking the only significant armoured combat on D-Day. Sergeant David Collins of the East Yorkshire Regiment remembered, "We could hear the rumble of panzer engines. It was a tense moment, but our anti-tank guns and naval support kept them at bay." The coordination between naval, air, and ground forces proved crucial to the success of the Commonwealth landings. Offshore bombardment suppressed many German defensive positions, while fighter bombers attacked enemy strongpoints inland. This integrated approach to combined arms warfare would become a hallmark of Allied operations in the coming months. By the end of D-Day, British forces at Gold Beach had penetrated nearly 10 kilometers inland, the deepest advance of any Allied unit. Canadian forces at Juno had secured their beachhead and were advancing towards inland objectives. At Sword, British troops had established a tenuous link with the 6th Airborne Division, which had captured key bridges over the Orne River and Caen Canal. The multinational effort on the Commonwealth beaches not only contributed to the success of D-Day, but also laid the groundwork for post-war alliances. The shared experience of combat and the close cooperation between British and Canadian forces strengthened the bonds between these nations, influencing their diplomatic and military relationships for decades to come. While none of the Commonwealth forces reached all of their ambitious D-Day objectives, notably, Caen remained in German hands. they had achieved remarkable success in establishing a firm foothold in Normandy. This success stood in stark contrast to the confusion and disarray experienced by German forces, who struggled to mount an effective response to the Allied landings. As night fell on June 6, 1944, the stage was set for the next phase of the invasion, with Allied forces poised to exploit their hard-won gains and push further into occupied France. The German response, confusion, and delay. As Allied forces secured their foothold in Normandy, a perplexing question emerged. Where was the swift German counterattack? The fearsome Wehrmacht, which had conquered much of Europe, seemed oddly paralyzed. This unexpected inaction would prove crucial to Operation Overlord's success, as the German war machine's strength was undermined by strategic missteps and communication failures. At the heart of the German response lay a dysfunctional command structure. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt's authority was frequently undermined by Hitler's insistence on personal control. This tension between military leadership and political interference created an atmosphere of uncertainty among German commanders. The initial German reaction was one of confusion and skepticism. Reports of paratroop landings were initially dismissed as small-scale raids or diversions. Allied deception operations, particularly Operation Bodyguard, had left the German High Command anticipating a major assault in the Pas-de-Calais region. This preconception colored their interpretation of early intelligence, leading to critical delays. As the invasion's scale became apparent, German commanders faced a crucial decision: whether to commit their limited mobile reserves. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's absence, having returned to Germany for his wife's birthday, further hampered the response. The 21st Panzer Division received conflicting orders throughout June 6th. When finally ordered to counterattack, their advance was hampered by Allied air superiority and sabotaged bridges. Hitler's response further complicated matters. He initially dismissed the landings as a diversion, insisting that the real invasion was yet to come. This led to withholding critical panzer divisions from Normandy for several crucial days. Allied air power significantly hindered German reinforcement efforts. Operation Transport Plan had severely damaged rail lines and bridges throughout northern France. The constant threat of fighter bombers forced German units to move primarily at night, further slowing their response. The German 15th Army in the Pas-de-Calais region remained largely immobile, convinced that Normandy was a feint. This strategic miscalculation removed a significant portion of German combat power from the decisive battle. The psychological impact on German leadership was profound. Colonel General Alfred Jodl later recalled, "We were caught in a web of our own making. Our belief in the Pas-de-Calais invasion was so strong that we refused to see the reality unfolding before us in Normandy." By June 8, Hitler finally authorized the release of several panzer divisions for a counterattack. However, this decision came too late. Allied forces had used the time afforded by German indecision to strengthen their positions and continue their build-up. The German response to D-Day stands as a stark example of how strategic deception, command paralysis, and flawed intelligence analysis can neutralize even the most formidable military force. The failure to mount an effective counterattack in the early days of the invasion proved pivotal to Operation Overlord's ultimate success, securing the beachhead the first 24 hours. As dawn broke on June 6, 1944, Allied forces found themselves in a desperate struggle to transform their precarious beach landings into a defensible position. The success of Operation Overlord hung in the balance, as troops fought to establish a foothold against fierce German resistance. Private John Steele of the 82nd Airborne Division recalled, "We were scattered all over the countryside, fighting for our lives and trying to link up with anyone we could find. The logistical challenges of the first 24 hours were staggering. Thousands of men, vehicles, and tons of supplies had to be offloaded onto the beaches under enemy fire and moved inland. The artificial mulberry harbors, crucial for rapid unloading, were not yet fully operational. Congestion on the beaches posed a significant problem, as described by Sergeant Tom Vallance of the 29th Infantry Division. The beach was absolute chaos. Men, equipment, and vehicles were everywhere, and we were all sitting ducks for German artillery. Allied commanders focused on linking up the disparate landing forces to prevent German exploitation of the gaps between invasion beaches. The 101st and 82nd Airborne Divisions, despite being scattered, played a vital role in securing these gaps. As forces pushed inland, they faced varying degrees of resistance. The capture of key strategic points became a priority, with the town of Caen proving to be a formidable challenge for British and Canadian forces. The threat of a massive German armoured counterattack loomed large. Allied engineers worked tirelessly to construct makeshift fortifications, while infantry units dug in along key terrain features. Captain James Hollingsworth of the 2nd Armoured Division noted, "We knew if the Germans hit us with everything they had, we could be thrown back into the sea." Every man was on edge, expecting the worst. The bocage country of Normandy, with its thick hedgerows and narrow lanes, presented a significant obstacle for advancing troops. Improvised solutions, such as welding metal prongs to the front of tanks to break through hedgerows, were quickly developed. By nightfall, the extent of the Allied foothold became clear. Despite heavy casualties, particularly at Omaha Beach, the Allies had established a beachhead several miles deep in most sectors. The 1st Infantry Division at Omaha had pushed approximately 1.5 miles inland, while American forces at Utah Beach had advanced nearly 5 miles. British troops from Gold Beach had captured Bayou, advancing about 6 miles inland. Canadian forces from Juno Beach had made the deepest penetration, pushing nearly 7 miles into enemy territory. However, not all objectives had been achieved. The failure to capture Caen would have long-term implications for the campaign. Additionally, some airborne units remained isolated behind enemy lines. Lieutenant Richard Winters of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment described the situation. "We were cut off, low on ammunition, and surrounded by the enemy. But we held our ground, knowing that every minute we kept the Germans occupied was crucial for the men on the beaches." The logistical situation remained precarious. While thousands of tons of supplies had been brought ashore, the threat of German air and naval attacks on the vulnerable supply lines remained a concern. The experiences of D-Day would shape future military doctrine, emphasizing the importance of rapid force buildup, improved air-ground coordination, and the development of specialized equipment for amphibious operations. As the first 24 hours of Operation Overlord drew to a close, the Allies had achieved a remarkable feat. They had established a foothold in Nazi-occupied Europe, but the challenge of expanding and securing this beachhead lay ahead. The coming weeks would determine whether this hard-won position would become the springboard for the liberation of Europe or a costly failure in the annals of military history. The price of victory, casualties, and sacrifices. Private Robert Slaughter of the 29th Infantry Division stared out at the blood-stained waters of Omaha Beach, his young face etched with the horrors he had witnessed. "I became a man that day," he would later recall, "but I aged 1,000 years." This poignant reflection encapsulates the devastating human cost of the D-Day invasion, a toll that would resonate for generations. As the dust settled on the beaches of Normandy, the grim reality of the Allied operation became apparent. The price of breaching Hitler's Atlantic Wall had been steep, exceeding even the most pessimistic projections of Allied planners. Omaha Beach bore witness to particularly devastating carnage, with the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions losing over 2,000 men in the initial assault. The 116th Infantry Regiment suffered especially heavy losses, with Company A losing 96% of its men in the opening minutes of the battle. While Utah Beach saw fewer casualties, with the 4th Infantry Division suffering approximately 200 losses, the airborne divisions paid a heavy price. The 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions lost nearly 2,500 men combined, many drowning in flooded fields or perishing before reaching the ground. The British 6th Airborne Division suffered over 1,000 casualties during their operations to secure vital bridges and disrupt German communications. On the Commonwealth beaches, the Canadian 3rd Infantry Division at Juno Beach suffered over 1,000 casualties, while British forces at Gold and Sword beaches lost approximately 1,000 men combined. The German defenders, though fewer in number, also suffered significant losses. The 352nd Infantry Division, defending Omaha Beach, lost over 1,200 men killed, wounded, or captured. The 716th Static Infantry Division, defending Juno and Gold beaches, was virtually destroyed as a fighting unit by the end of D-Day. The psychological toll of the invasion was immense, leaving deep emotional scars on many survivors. The effort to evacuate and treat the wounded under enemy fire was a monumental task. Evacuation ships ferried thousands of wounded men back to England, with the 56th General Hospital in Southampton alone treating over 10,000 casualties in the first week following D-Day. Innovations in battlefield medicine played a crucial role in saving lives. The widespread use of blood plasma, sulfur drugs, and penicillin helped reduce mortality rates among the wounded. However, many soldiers still succumbed to their injuries due to the sheer volume of casualties and the difficulties of evacuation under combat conditions. The long-term consequences of the D-Day losses were far-reaching. Many units that landed in Normandy continued to fight across Europe, but their effectiveness was diminished by the loss of experienced personnel. The 29th Infantry Division, for example, would suffer a 150% casualty rate by the end of the war. On the home front, families across the Allied nations grappled with the loss of loved ones. Communities were forever altered as young men who had once filled local schools, factories, and farms would never return. The psychological impact of these losses shaped post-war societies for decades, influencing everything from social policies to cultural attitudes towards war and sacrifice. As the Normandy campaign progressed, the true scale of the casualties became apparent. By the end of August 1944, when the Allies finally broke out of Normandy, the total Allied casualties from the D-Day landings through August 21st had reached over 226,000 men. Of these, nearly 73,000 were British and Canadian, and 153,000 were American. The German losses were equally staggering, with estimates ranging from 200,000 to 250,000 casualties during the same period. The human cost of D-Day serves as a sobering reminder of the sacrifices made by the greatest generation. It underscores the immense price paid for freedom and democracy, a price that continues to shape our understanding of war and its consequences to this day. Breaking out, the Battle of Normandy. The Battle of Normandy, following the initial success of D-Day, presented Allied forces with a daunting challenge. The treacherous bocage terrain of northern France. This landscape, characterized by small fields enclosed by dense hedgerows and sunken lanes, transformed the countryside into a veritable fortress favoring the defenders. The bocage severely impeded rapid mechanized advances, forcing Allied troops to navigate a labyrinth of potential ambush sites. This natural defensive system significantly slowed the Allied advance and increased casualties, as German forces quickly regrouped under Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's direction to mount fierce resistance. To overcome these obstacles, Allied forces developed innovative tactics. American troops, facing the nightmare of tank ambushes in narrow lanes, created the ingenious solution of hedgerow cutters. These devices, attached to tanks, allowed them to punch through the dense vegetation and outflank German positions. The struggle to capture Caen, a major communications hub, epitomized the brutal nature of the Normandy campaign. British and Canadian forces found themselves locked in a protracted battle against determined German defenders, including the elite 12th SS Panzer Division. The fight for Caen consumed resources and manpower originally intended for a rapid advance, underscoring the campaign's intensity. Operation Cobra, launched on July 25, 1944, marked a turning point in the battle. Over 3,000 Allied aircraft carpet-bombed a narrow section of the German line near Saint-Lô, paving the way for a breakthrough by American forces. This massive air assault finally cracked the German defenses, allowing for a rapid advance into the French interior. The arrival of reinforcements and supplies through the artificial Mulberry harbours further facilitated the Allied breakout. As the momentum of the Allied advance accelerated in August, the liberation of Paris on August 25, 1944, symbolized a pivotal moment in the campaign. With the French capital secured and German forces retreating, Allied armies prepared to push towards the German border. The Battle of Normandy exacted a heavy toll on both sides. Allied casualties from June 6th to August 21st exceeded 226,000 men, with nearly 73,000 British and Canadian losses, and 153,000 American casualties. German losses were equally staggering, estimated between 200,000 and 250,000 men. These numbers underscore the desperate nature of the struggle and the high stakes involved. The experiences gained during the Normandy campaign profoundly influenced future military training and tactics. The challenges posed by the bocage led to increased emphasis on combined arms operations, where infantry, armor, and air support work in close coordination. The hedgerow cutters developed by American forces became a standard modification for tanks in subsequent operations. Moreover, the difficulties encountered in Normandy prompted a re-evaluation of infantry tactics. The US Army incorporated lessons learned from the hedgerow fighting into its training programs, emphasizing small unit tactics and the importance of initiative at the squad and platoon levels. The British Army, drawing from its experiences in Caen, refined its urban warfare doctrine. The Battle of Normandy also highlighted the critical role of air power in supporting ground operations. The success of Operation Cobra led to increased integration of close air support in future campaigns, a practice that continues to shape modern military doctrine. In retrospect, the Normandy campaign served as a crucible for Allied forces, testing their adaptability, resolve, and strategic acumen. The lessons learned in the hedgerows and towns of northern France would prove invaluable as the Allies continued their push towards Germany, ultimately leading to the defeat of Nazi Germany and the end of World War II in Europe. The beginning of the end, D-Day's impact on World War II. The success of D-Day marked a pivotal turning point in World War II, altering the strategic landscape of Europe and setting in motion a series of events that would ultimately lead to the downfall of Nazi Germany. Prior to the invasion, the Axis powers held a firm grip on Western Europe, with German forces entrenched along the Atlantic Wall and occupied territories stretching from Norway to the Spanish border. The Soviet Union, though pushing back against German advances on the Eastern Front, bore the brunt of the war effort against Hitler's forces. The Normandy landings opened a crucial second front in Western Europe, forcing the German High Command to divert significant resources away from other theatres of war. This reallocation of troops, equipment, and supplies had far-reaching consequences for the German war machine. The Luftwaffe, already stretched thin, now faced the daunting task of countering Allied air superiority over France. German ground forces found themselves caught between two formidable adversaries. The psychological impact of D-Day's success reverberated throughout both Axis and Allied nations. For the German populace, the Allied foothold in Normandy shattered the illusion of an impregnable fortress Europe. Morale among German troops began to waver as the reality of their situation became apparent. Conversely, the invasion's success galvanized Allied resolve and boosted morale on the home fronts of Britain, the United States, and other Allied nations. In occupied countries across Europe, the news of the Normandy landings sparked hope and reinvigorated resistance movements. The French resistance played a crucial role in disrupting German communications and supply lines, further straining German resources and complicating efforts to mount an effective counteroffensive against the Allied beachhead. The establishment of a secure foothold in Normandy allowed the Allies to accelerate their advance across Europe. As more troops and supplies poured into France through the artificial Mulberry harbours, the Allied forces gained the momentum needed to push inland. The liberation of Paris on August 25, 1944, marked a symbolic victory that further undermined German control over Western Europe. As Allied forces pressed eastward, they began to link up with Soviet troops advancing from the east, creating an ever-tightening noose around Nazi Germany. The success of D-Day and the subsequent Normandy campaign had a profound effect on German military strategy. Hitler's no-retreat policy became increasingly untenable as Allied forces pushed deeper into occupied territory. The German High Command struggled to formulate an effective response to the Allied onslaught, further destabilized by the attempted assassination of Hitler on July 20th, 1944. As the Allied advance gained momentum, the collapse of Nazi Germany accelerated. The diversion of resources to counter the Normandy invasion left other fronts vulnerable, allowing Soviet forces to make significant gains in the east. The Romanian coup d'etat in August 1944 and the subsequent defection of other Axis allies further weakened Germany's strategic position. By early 1945, Allied forces were crossing the Rhine and Soviet troops were approaching Berlin, signaling the imminent defeat of the Third Reich. The impact of D-Day extended beyond military considerations, influencing the political landscape of post-war Europe. The joint Anglo-American effort in planning and executing the invasion strengthened the alliance between the two nations, laying the groundwork for future cooperation. The liberation of Western Europe by primarily American, British, and Canadian forces also had significant implications for the post-war balance of power, as it limited Soviet influence in these regions. The Normandy invasion's success also played a crucial role in shaping the final stages of the war in the Pacific theater. With victory in Europe assured, the United States was able to redirect more resources towards the campaign against Japan. This reallocation of forces, combined with the psychological impact of Germany's defeat, contributed to the intensification of the Pacific War, and ultimately led to Japan's surrender in August 1945. Technological legacy, D-Day's influence on modern warfare. The technological innovations of D-Day stand in stark contrast to the advanced military equipment of today, yet their influence remains profound. While modern soldiers wield sophisticated weaponry and communicate through encrypted digital networks, the roots of these technologies can be traced back to the beaches of Normandy in 1944. Consider the Amphibious Combat Vehicle, ACV, used by the US Marine Corps. This state-of-the-art transport seamlessly transitions from sea to land, much like its predecessor, the DUKW amphibious truck of D-Day fame. The ACV's ability to deliver troops safely to shore owes much to those early innovations. The legacy of D-Day's technological advancements extends far beyond amphibious vehicles. Modern military parachute systems, with their precision guidance and ability to deliver both personnel and heavy equipment, are direct descendants of the airborne operations conducted during Operation Overlord. These systems have evolved to address the challenges faced by paratroopers during the invasion, including missed drop zones and scattered units. The massive logistical undertaking of D-Day also spurred innovations that continue to shape military operations. The Mulberry Harbors, artificial ports rapidly deployed to support the invasion, demonstrated the potential for prefabricated, modular infrastructure. This concept has evolved into today's containerized logistics systems, allowing for rapid deployment of supplies and equipment to remote or hostile environments. The coordination between air, land, and sea forces during D-Day laid the groundwork for today's network-centric warfare. The portable radio equipment that allowed for real-time coordination between units on D-Day has evolved into sophisticated integrated command and control systems. These systems enable instantaneous sharing of information across all branches of the armed forces, a capability that traces its lineage to the communications breakthroughs of Operation Overlord. The need to overcome obstacles on the Normandy beaches has led to the development of advanced mine clearing and obstacle removal systems. Similarly, the concept of vertical envelopment, first employed on a large scale during D-Day, has evolved into modern air assault tactics utilizing helicopters and tilt-rotor aircraft. The intelligence gathering techniques employed in preparation for D-Day have also had a lasting impact. The extensive use of aerial reconnaissance, code-breaking, and deception operations during the planning stages of Operation Overlord laid the groundwork for modern intelligence practices. Today's military intelligence relies heavily on satellite imagery, signals interception, and data analytics, all of which can trace their roots to the methods employed in preparation for the Normandy landings. Specific technological advancements from D-Day continue to influence modern military equipment. The hedgerow cutters developed to overcome the challenging terrain of Normandy's bocage country foreshadowed the development of modern combat engineering vehicles. Today's militaries employ specialized vehicles equipped with mine-clearing plows, bridge-laying capabilities, and obstacle removal systems that trace their lineage to the improvisations made during the Normandy campaign. As military technology continues to advance, the innovations born from the crucible of D-Day remain relevant, from amphibious vehicles to precision airdrop systems, from modular logistics to integrated command and control. The technological legacy of Operation Overlord continues to shape the battlefield of the 21st century. The ingenuity and resourcefulness displayed on those fateful beaches in 1944 continue to inspire military planners and engineers, ensuring that the lessons of D-Day remain at the forefront of military innovation. The concept of joint operations, where different service branches work in concert towards a common objective, became a cornerstone of military strategy in the wake of World War II. This approach continues to evolve, with modern militaries emphasizing interoperability and shared situational awareness as key components of their operational doctrines. The emphasis on mobility and flexibility in logistics planning can be traced back to the innovations necessitated by the Normandy invasion,